car across the freeway in complete bright, clean black top and completely T-boned his car and crushed him and killed him instantly. So Seymour Cray had done the impossible. He'd actually, without zero gravity, created a gallium arsenide chip that had to be created at almost minus 200 degrees Kelvin in order to create this chip that allowed quantum computing. To give you an idea, the Cray 4 computer, Cray 5 can do the calculations in teraflops. It's equivalent to 100,000 Cray 4s. Gives you an idea just how powerful this is. And I'll show you tonight why quantum computing is part of the matrix they're building and why this is so important. When I walked through the array, they had hundreds and hundreds of Cray computers, all in a giant cube underground, connected by fiber optic high-speed networks. And they weren't just using regular, they were using ultraviolet fiber optics, which is much, much higher speed information transfer. Huge cables the size of your thumb, hundreds and hundreds of them connecting through this array. And if you knew the computing power, they are, and I was told this by my NSA contacts because I had very high contacts, people that literally on a need-to-know basis the president does not have access to. So a lot of the people don't understand that most of the senior people in our Congress and Senate, if they're watching this video, I'm going to tell them stuff that they don't know, even if they're on the Armed Services Committee. They will not know what I know. Part of the reason is I would exchange information and have a photographic memory with many of the people in different divisions of the military and intelligence, and they would freak out when I would tell them out of their highly compartmentalized area exactly what was going on in the next room or the next building or the next facility underground. The Echelon project is just the tip of the iceberg. They have had a database not only of everybody's dial tone and identification data of every citizen in every westernized nation on the planet, but they have been doing this for well over 26 years, and that database is all ready to stick the chip in you and track you for your global identification. I was actually given a private audience for a gentleman back in 1998 who in 1995 had actually done a presentation to Lockheed Martin and Lucent Technologies and have a 600 and some page copy of his patent application for the world identification, and he went over the details, and people at Lockheed Martin and Lucent told him that his information was useful, but they'd all gone well beyond that, and he thought of a few good ideas that they'd incorporate. So they said, well, you're going to buy my patent or incorporate? No, we don't need you. So they've been doing this for a long time. The smart highways, the Iridium satellite system, the cell towers, all of these things are integrated into a system that is literally beyond your imagination. As far as you think any of these B movies or technologies, it is orders of magnitude and ages beyond anything you can imagine. And it exists today already. All that is left is the implementation. So in 1999, I met with the people that we were doing our operational tests for Operation Top Off and Dark Winter with Dr. Jay Reddington from the University of Colorado, Department of Infectious Disease at the VA, and the Center for Disease Control Director for the FBI, Director for Bioterrorism. And we were doing simulations. We did bioterrorism simulations at the Performing Arts Center in Denver, and also at the 17th Avenue. In the Performing Arts Center, we did a simulation where we pretended that it was a release of a bubonic plague and tried to simulate if people would gather the correct information at the local hospitals to be able to back calculate out when the release was and who would have been gotten sick, and knowing how long the incubation period, who would survive. Well, we failed miserably on that, and in a test in anthrax sprayed out of a second-floor window on 17th Avenue. We also did a simulation in Boulder with a supercomputer there, a National Weather Service supercomputer there, and found that we pretended on the supercomputer we did a simulation of someone coming in from Cairo, Egypt, injected with weaponized smallpox. And our computers predicted that 93 countries and 93 million Americans would be infected in 90 days. That, of course, is a computer simulation. There's lots of parameters that that would confound that reality. But nevertheless, they've been doing all these simulations. Well, on March 1 of 2001, A couple years after this, I met again at a bioterrorism conference with Dr. Reddington, the FBI and CDC directors, and the FBI director leaned across the table at lunch, because we had a private lunch, because I was one of the inner circle, and said to me in no certain terms that there will be a Pearl Harbor event. Interesting, it's Pearl Harbor Day today, December 7th, 2006. And this event will, with a 95% probability, bring about martial law in America and a national ID with an implantable chip. And he said all of those things, and he repeated them 3 times so that it would sink in. And I asked him questions for the next hour and a half, and because he wouldn't tell me straight out exactly what simulations, because we talked about everything from jet aircraft going into buildings, to micro-nukes in cities, to bioterrorism release, to things in the water, to nano-weapons, to all kinds of things. And one of the scenarios that was one of the top 3 or 4 was jet aircraft going into World Trade Center towers. So when you hear Condoleezza Rice lying and saying that they never thought of it, they told me that there were actually simulations of jet aircraft planned to go in at that time, later that year, probably in September, into the WTC towers. So when I was driving my children, because I lived in South Denver, in Highlands Ranch, driving them to the charter school 1 mile from Columbine, I was enraged. And enraged isn't even a strong enough word to understand that they actually took those towers down, and I knew that they did it. Because I have advanced training in technology. I was supposed to go into nuclear physics at MIT, and I went into honors biochemistry and completed my PhD research project in 5 months at age 20. I didn't write my thesis because I went into medicine, so I'm not exactly stupid. And when these people did this, I knew that they had not only struck a dagger into the hearts of Americans, but they'd killed people in 82 nations. And this is the sentinel event of our century, not just in the physical realm, but in the spiritual realm, because we're actually approaching a thing called the Nexus, which I'm going to talk in my 4th talk about. When we have whistleblowers like Stephen Jones, with his thermate and his very solid science proving it, and Dr. Ward, who spoke on my radio show a few months ago, was a medical doctor who's retired about 9 years, who did a very recent analysis proving that there were micro-nukes in the building, cars and other vehicles that were melted on one side and not the other. Particleization of 2/3 of the total mass of the World Trade Center towers that were turned into nanoparticles. The only thing that could have done that was nukes. There is no other conclusion. It's not something that's open to discussion or anything else, because even high explosives couldn't have done what was found there. And there were reports, not only by the Pentagon, but by other independent sources, that there were radioisotopes detected at some distance away from the WCC towers, as well as the Pentagon. So whether they had a DU-tipped missile or a small bomb or micro-nukes, there were radioisotopes involved, as well as the high explosive thermate in the bringing down of those towers. And from my contacts in the NSA, they were operationally ordered by the Jesuits through the Project Omega, which is the final implementation of the project conceived by the Nazis during the Second World War, before the Second World War in the 1930s. Project Omega is a super agency that oversees all intelligence agencies on the planet. Their underground facilities are in Colorado. It was completed under the operational directorship of George Herbert Walker Bush, the senior Bush. And this agency is involved not only with all the deep underground bases, but also our off-world facilities and our off-world fleets of space-based aircraft and other advanced technologies that you can't imagine exist. So the level of evil is beyond imagination.